Hello and welcome, my name is Ansu and today I want to talk about my top 5 books that I would reread. I'm not a huge person on rereading unfortunately, but these are books that I would like to reread in the future. Possibly. Either because I completely forgot about what they were like, or it was something that I definitely enjoyed quite a bit and I'd like to potentially reread it one day. How many times am I going to say reread in this video? But anyway, let's get into all the books that I would potentially like to reread. The first one has been such an all-time favorite for so long, and I have been raving about just this one book in this entire series. Like, if you skip on the series, there's no issues. Like, I wouldn't care if you skipped on an entire series, but just read this first prequel to the series and I would be so happy. It is The Assassins, Leigh by Sarah J. Maas, and if you just read this one book, I would be so happy. You don't have to read Throne of Glass the rest of the series. It's totally fine. Like, if you read this one, I absolutely adore this particular book. This really got me into fantasy, if I'm being completely honest. Got me out of my reading slump of like a whole 2-3 years of not reading a single book. Absolutely adore this. But anyway, so we are basically following around this character called Selena Sardothian, who is her kingdom's most feared assassin. She is brutal, she's fast, she just is perfect. The great thing about Selena is, although she is so murderous, I guess, she also has this very feminine side to her where she likes to be made up, she likes to paint her nails, all that kind of stuff, and it's really nice to see all of those things. The gripe that I had with this book is that a lot of times they don't really tell you how she was such a badass. They kind of just told you like, oh, she's brutal, she's this, she's that, but they didn't really go into as much detail as I'd like to about her being that cruel, I guess. Selena's scheming master Arobin actually sends her on different trials, I guess, and she ends up going to deserts. She ends up making her own choices, which leads her to question her allegiance. And along the way, she finds a lot of friendships and enemies, and she also finds to actually like Sam, her friend, a lot more than just a friend. I definitely really enjoyed it. It's just so good. I would definitely reread this. This is something that I would 100% try to reread one day. But I just don't know if I'm ready to feel the feels, you know what I'm saying? So that's the only issue. But it's definitely a great book. I would highly recommend you guys pick this one up. The next one that I would potentially like to reread, just because the second book is out and I haven't gotten to that, is King of Scars by Leigh Bardugo. This one, I remember enjoying it. I didn't love it too much, but it was definitely a fun book to get through. And we're following around one of my favorite characters from the Shadow and Bone trilogy, Nikolai, and I absolutely adore that character so much. So just seeing a lot more about him was just a lot of fun. The story overall is not something that I totally enjoyed. I'm pretty sure like we're following around Nikolai and Nina and Zoya. There's a lot of magic, evil powers, demon controlling Nikolai kind of situations going on. It's just really interesting and fun. If you haven't read the Shadow and Bone trilogy, you probably have to before you get to this, because, well, the characters mentioned in those are kind of in here as well, and you would honestly not know any of them. Going along with that, I'm pretty sure like the Six of Crows duology is also in the same world, and we have one of those characters from Six of Crows in here as well, if that makes sense. So it's all like interconnected, and I'm pretty sure you need to read both those series before you get to this. But anyway, this is definitely a decent enough read for me to actually continue on with the series, and yeah, that's why I definitely need to try to reread this. Most likely I will not, but like, it's a hope. I might do it. The next one I definitely want to listen to on audiobook and get to is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. It is well known. I would like to get through it, and it's definitely high up on a reread list. We're following around Daisy Jones, who's a singer in the 1960s, 70s, I guess, and she has a huge rock star life, I guess, and she ends up working with this band called the Six. They all have this very high, famous people kind of energy towards them, and we're following them all around through like an interview session. There are like interview clips in here, which is really cool to see. I kept googling if these characters were actually real people, because it really seems like real people and it almost feels like a non-fiction even though it's not, and I just thought it was so interesting. It's definitely a very fun concept and I had a lot of fun reading it. So definitely something that I'm looking forward to picking up as an audiobook. The next one I'd like to reread, like honestly, forever and ever and ever, is The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. I love this book. I read this a couple months ago and I genuinely loved it so much. I had so many feelings towards it, and It was just such an adorable book and it made me cry so much. It was just great. I loved it. That's the thing. This is definitely something that I'd like to reread down the road because I enjoyed it so much and I want to feel all the feels again. Honestly, that's pretty much it. I so had a joyous time reading this, so I'd like to get to this one day, and it is on like a higher scale of reading, so very excited about it. The final book that I'm going to talk about is A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. I read this a few years ago and I remember loving it so much. I had a grand time reading it. This one follows around like 4 different types of Londons. There's Red London, Grey London, Black London, and White London. Mainly Grey London is supposed to be dirty and boring without any magic, with one mad king. Red London is full of life and magic. The White London is a city slowly being drained through magical war. And once upon a time there was also Black London, but no one really speaks of it right now. We have this character called Kel, who is a traveler from the Red Land. I guess he's a red traveler. And he's one of the last magicians who can travel between these Londons. He's acting as an ambassador and messenger between these Londons and keeping everything up to date, I guess. He's also unofficially a smuggler. It's definitely not a very safe hobby for him to have. Kel kind of stumbles into a setup with a forbidden token from Black London, and he ends up escaping into Grey London, where he meets this new person called Delilah Bard, or Lila Bard, who first actually ends up robbing him and then saving him from a dangerous enemy. Basically, Kel ends up whisking her way from Grey London into this whole journey of traveling between Londons. And yeah, there's just so much intricacy into this whole series, and I had a lot of fun reading it, and I want to feel like that again. I want to feel like it was great again. It's just so much nostalgia that I want to feel again, and yeah, it's just such a great book. I really enjoyed it. Alright, you guys, those are all the books that I'd like to reread in the future one day. I don't know, like honestly, not a huge fan of rereading myself because there's so many books that I probably have to finish. Yeah, so I don't know if I'll ever reread them. If you're new here, hi, welcome. My name is Ansu. Please don't forget to hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to be notified every single time I upload a new video. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you all next time with another one. Until then, I'll talk to you all in the comments. Bye!